Japan is so traditional.
Recently, I attended a gay pride festival here in Tokyo. Having grown up in a city with a large gay population and massive pride parade, I have both gay friends and, as well, attended several pride festivals. For the Tokyo Pride Festival, held on the 7th of May, I attended with an old friend of mine who just happens to be gay, and we were both taken very much aback by the vast difference between pride festivals held in the West and the one we witnessed in Tokyo. I have very much taken notice in Japan, as well as most of East Asia, as well as the Buddhist parts of Southeast Asia, of the prevailing oblivious attitude toward homosexuality, or lack of any strong opinion for that matter. For example, in Thailand, the range of sexuality is taken for granted, and transgender or katoi are considered a third sex and are so ubiquitous as to not even be noticed. This is in severe contrast to Muslim lands like Saudi Arabia, which, despite being a kingdom in the closet, sodomy is punishable by death. But for the men of Saudi Arabia, like most of the Muslim world, anybody can be a top. Only a gay can be a bottom. The West, because of its Christian inheritance, has long grappled with homosexuality and has generally existed somewhere between these two extremes. Today, homosexual men are known by a variety of names: a pole smoker, a bum chum, a butt pirate, an anal assassin, a poo miner, in the parlance of the 19th century, a sodomite. But for many, he can simply be called a faggot. And homosexuality, even my friend will agree, is an illness of some sort because there's literally no evolutionary benefit to it. Obstructing an organism's ability to procreate goes against existence itself. But why does homosexuality draw so much hatred from certain cultures? People can say, I'm paraplegic, I have Tourette syndrome, I'm a Japanese woman trapped in a white person's body. To any of these, the reaction is, oh, that's very unfortunate, I'm very sorry for you. Conversely, in previous decades in the West, as well as many other parts of the world today, a person might say, I'm gay. To this, the reaction of many is, abomination! You shouldn't exist, you subhuman scum! Even some of the most hallowed figures within the pantheon of social justice were equally hateful and dismissive toward the homosexual, including Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. And those who have been vilified for generations as a monster were actually extremely tolerant of homosexuality. Either way, the dramatic reversal of fortunes with regards to homosexuality and its social acceptance in Western countries in just a couple of decades has been as dramatic as it has been breathtaking. Even Pope Francis says transsexuals and gay people should be embraced by Catholics. So, for as far as we can see, homosexuality has been at least acknowledged, whether for good or ill, across the gulf of time and throughout many civilizations. To this day, in my own experience, gay people can be, and often are, very normal people. Yes, you do find those that wrap their entire identity into being homosexual, but those, I would say, from experience, are the exception rather than the rule. Most homosexuals have more of a life and personality than just being gay. They are people that like cars, travel, and watching news, not the guy that rushes to the glory hole at the car show while traveling abroad or at the cinema. And it is these homosexuals, at least socially and via the media, are greatly underrepresented, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of visibility. And while attending the Pride Festival here in Tokyo, this is exactly the same conclusion that I and my friend came to, as we also noticed that the vibe, style, and those attending the Pride Festival were the complete opposite to those who participate in Pride parades in the West. Do you notice anything about this footage? This is a gay pride festival. Where are the dildos and giant phalluses? Where are the naked people, some with semi-erect penises? Where are the people in bondage costumes walking their gimps on leashes? Where are those getting a Prince Albert installed to a baying crowd? Where are the simulated sex acts? Let me put this into perspective. Where are the dildos and giant phalluses? Where are the naked people, some with semi-erect penises? Where are the people in bondage costumes walking their gimps on leashes? Where are those getting a Prince Albert installed to a baying crowd? Where are the simulated sex acts? Let me put this into perspective. Where are the dildos and giant phalluses? Where are the naked people, some with semi-erect penises? Where are the people in bondage costumes walking their gimps on leashes? Where are those getting a Prince Albert installed to a baying crowd? Where are the simulated sex acts? Let me put this into perspective. Where are the dildos and giant phalluses? Where are the naked people, some with semi-erect penises? Where are the people in bondage costumes walking their gimps on leashes? Where are those getting a Prince Albert installed to a baying crowd? Where are the simulated sex acts? Let me put this into perspective. Where are the dildos and giant phalluses? Where are the naked people, some with semi-erect penises? Where are the people in bondage costumes walking their gimps on leashes? Where are those getting a Prince Albert installed to a baying crowd? Where are the simulated sex acts? Let me put this into perspective. Where are the dildos and giant phalluses? Where are the naked people, some with semi-erect penises? Where are the people in bondage costumes walking their gimps on leashes? Where are those getting a Prince Albert installed to a baying crowd? Where are the simulated sex acts?
Strike the pose.
Happy, happy Pride!
The homosexuals I know will tell you that they would never go outside dressed in BDSM costumes with their junk on display and cavort in massive bear twink orgies. They're regular people just like anyone else. They just happen to sleep with the same sex behind closed doors. Their sexuality does not define their entire identity. And then it dawned on me that the Tokyo Pride Festival was a real expression of the desire to be accepted socially, not as an excuse to publicly spray your bodily fluids on other people or have objects jammed into your orifices to a squealing, unapproving crowd. But in fact, actually, there never has been a large stigma in Japan toward homosexuality, or any other kind of sexuality for that matter. Japanese are just as world famous for their outrageous sexual fetishes as they are for their reliable cars. During the Edo period, sexual relations, especially in the samurai class between older men and younger boys.
I'll be quick. This arbitrary and oppressive idea of consent, which totally destroys, the understanding that many of us have of the complexities and subtleties and complicated nature of many relationships. People are messy and complex, and actually, in the homosexual world particularly, some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming-of-age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are and give them security and safety and provide them with love and
was not only accepted, but in some senses encouraged. Fraternizing with older warriors when you were young was said to help one develop into an excellent samurai. And throughout Japanese history, there were many powerful figures who kept young and attractive boyfriends. In fact, homosexuality in British countries as a whole has always been pretty open. Moreover, homosexuality in Japan was an accepted part of life until modernity struck. Imported Western civilization believed and preached homosexual relationships as sinful and abhorrent. One of the byproducts of modernization was that the Japanese interpreted their sexual openness, including homosexuality, as a sign of them being backwards. The Meiji-era attitude of homosexuality became a society-wide imposition of don't ask, don't tell. Families would arrange marriages to camouflage homosexuals, But society never went as far as persecuting them, and by the 1920s and 1930s, homosexuality largely returned to society and was accepted as a reality of life. And just an aside, lesbianism received little literary mention, but it seems to have been practiced in the Edo period and presumably from older times as well, and is pretty much a non-issue today. There are gay districts in every large Japanese town, with Shinjuku Nichome being the largest in Tokyo. The Japanese already have civil partnerships for homosexuals, and Japan is the first country in the world to elect a transgender man to public office. The biggest attraction were large men dressed in drag, but given the Japanese penchant for cosplay, and the fact that they were charging people to take a photo with them, their sexuality, at least on the surface, was very opaque. Put simply, Japanese and Western pride parades have basically nothing other than the rainbow flag in common. The Japanese version was one of fun and celebration, but also of dignity, moderation, and keeping overt expressions of sexuality reserved for behind closed doors. As it should be, or homo or hetero. This is in stark contrast to those homosexuals that participate in the sex-crazed pride parades in Western cities, who, because of their loud and ostentatious manner, are held up and celebrated by the media as your average homosexual. The problem is, from my own experience, qualities espoused by homosexuals of this nature, generally, as a group, are problematic to say the least. Just so happens that these are the values which define the millennial generation, and are a recipe for the decay and eventual collapse of society. Thus, the spread of ideals such as these through the institutions is directly harmful to the survival of the only civilization that celebrates them, the West. In this regard, we could take some advice from those in the East. Be as degenerate and have as many unusual fetishes as you like. Be as degenerate and have as many unusual fetishes as you like.
I think it's a really good festival. You can pray for fertility, you can pray for women's health, healthy babies. There are little penises everywhere, which is interesting.
Combating sexual violence by banning animes and mangas is the stupidest action that I have ever witnessed from the government since Indonesia's conscription laws. I've talked so many times about this in my previous vlog that censorship is not the most effective way of preventing sexual violence. Parenting, social care, even playing video games, those are solutions that can prevent sexual violence, or in fact, any forms of violence. Look, you guys in the UN are implying that violence against women are caused by watching animes and reading mangas. This is a ridiculous claim. That's like saying if the world starts throwing hats. I have a friend who is a huge anime fan and has watched the most screwed up animes in the entirety of mankind. And guess what? He is one of the smartest, most diligent students in my entire class. His first semester GPA was 3.5. Mine was below 3 because I am a lazy dumbass. In fact, I have multiple friends who are anime fans. If you want me to interview them, I can interview them. I can prove to you that sexual violence is not caused by animes and mangas. UN banning animes and mangas to prevent sexual violence is a lazy solution to a complicated problem. Don't get me wrong, we're all lazy people here. In fact, I'm a really lazy person. But if there's one thing that we all agree on is that laziness is an attitude that should be punished. I passed my first semester in college with bad grades because I was the laziest sloth you'll ever see in your entire life. I get punished punished for being lazy. UN is like the highest of high. The only people who can properly punish them is people who are under their control. To think that UN can get away with this is completely intolerable. I voice my concerns about this because you guys are supposed to be professionals who take topics like sexual violence towards women seriously. If your solution on combating sexual violence is a disgustingly lazy one, what does it say about combating more serious topics like the crisis in the Middle East or the economy or unemployment or any relevant issues? You tell me, man. You tell me. Well, either a hard face palm or even harder face palm, the one country that can properly react to this nonsense is Japan. And oh boy, this is why I love Japan. Those works, which are not modeled on existing peoples, cannot be in violation of human rights. A quote directly from the Japan's Minister of Justice. The fact that this has to be told to the United Nations is a disgrace. Keep in mind that Japan has practically said, your idea is stupid and you should feel stupid. Let me remind you, the UN gives a platform to Anita Sarkeesian, who victimizes herself in front of everyone because she is offended of receiving proper criticism. If the UN has the same mentality as Anita Sarkeesian, who's just getting offended for a valid critique, I am convinced that in a few years, we're gonna have another Hiroshima. This is a stupid move. In fact, you're gonna cause a hell of a lot more unemployment with this. You're suggesting that it is completely fine to ban animes and mangas, one of the most profitable entertainment business industry in the entire world, to come to the US, which means that Crunchyroll, Hulu, Funimation, and any other legal anime streaming websites are gonna get closed. People who are working on Japan's anime industry and people who are importing said work to America are gonna lose their job. The audiences who are willing to pay money and contribute to the economy of the entertainment industry, which is not a useless investment because it helps those that are working on it, cannot spend money on amazing animes and mangas, and instead have to put their money on the
organs, she continues. So yeah, on this one, I fear that the Foxminists and the feminists are going to wind up on the same side, and quite honestly, if you're a bloke who likes mud wrestling porn, maybe you should grow up and get out of the comics section. I wonder if this woman sits at home alone stroking cats all fucking day because she sounds like a prude, just being honest, coming up front. But then on top of that, she's basically saying if you like Keijo, then you need to grow up and get out of the section of comics. You gotta stop reading comics, you gotta, give it all up if you like Keijo. Hey, Miss Louise Mensch, I gotta tell you something. Go fuck yourself. No matter the fact if I personally ain't a fan of Keijo just because I kind of think it's just too silly for me and, it's all about ass or whatever, I'm not gonna go to the point of saying anybody that likes Keijo needs to give up comics and anime and manga. Like, what? Who the fuck are you? And then to say that it's misogynist and child porn, honestly, do you know what misogynist is? At the end of the day, the anime is replicating a world using creativity, even though it's kind of, again, ridiculous, but using creativity to imagine a world where there's a sport where these women are bouncing their asses off of each other. That's the whole premise. It's not saying this is all women are for, just to use their giant, juicy asses to pleasure men. Like, that's nothing to do with it. And again, the characters are adults. They're actually grown, which was refreshing with Keijo. So her whole point, her whole argument is destroyed. And again, if you watch Keijo and you like Keijo, apparently according to Miss Louise Mensch, you need to get out of comics and grow up. Fuck you, Louise Mensch. Eat a fucking dick, you prude.
Hey, how's it going everyone? This is the Anime Man. Now, being an avid member of the anime, manga, and otaku community, we've been berated a lot, especially in recent years, by the mainstream media, because there are a lot of things that the mainstream media, or I guess people outside of the community, don't quite understand about the things that we love. And it seems a female journalist over at the BBC by the name of Stacey Dooley decided to go out of her way to create a documentary about Japan's sex laws and about the fact that Japan is somehow infatuated with the idea of sexual activities and crimes, supposedly, towards young Japanese girls. The documentary titled Young Sex for Sale in Japan, which I'll leave in the description below, it's a pretty good watch, but there are a few things that were addressed in that video and outside of this documentary that have made me pretty fucking angry. Purely for the reason that some of the things that were stated in this documentary by Stacey and this one particular interview that wasn't included in the documentary, which I'll get to later on down the video, has just a lot of misinformation and conflicting opinions when it comes to not the fact that young Japanese girls and, child pornography, like real child pornography in Japan is a big issue. I'll definitely admit to that. But the fact that anime and manga supposedly is influencing pedophilia in Japan. Bullshit! Firstly, let me begin this video by saying, Stacey, if you are happening to watch this, a lot of the things you said in that documentary were spot on. Especially because I wholeheartedly agree with you when you said that sexual crimes of underage girls in Japan is an issue. I completely agree with that. It is unfortunately a dark truth that there are a lot of sexual crimes of children in Japan, and that still, even though the law was passed down a few years ago of the entire banning of all child pornography in Japan, that it is still quite a big problem, and there are a lot of people who are not only possessing child pornography in Japan, but also producing it. The documentary goes into great lengths and talks about all the different aspects of child pornography and how it is kind of conceived and kind of swept under the rug in Japan and just labeled as differences in culture, which again I think is quite bullshit and is nothing more than an excuse on Japan's part. But there was a whole segment in this documentary where the journalist goes and criticizes doujins and manga and anime, and showing the fact that depiction of sexual activities and crimes of supposedly young children, or what is depicted as young children, is a direct, or if it's not direct, an indirect influence on real pedophilic acts. Stacy, let me say this in the nicest way possible to you. Shut the fuck up. I'm really fucking sick of people who don't understand that side of Japan and that side of geek culture in saying that those kinds of depictions are directly correlated to the real life sexual activities that happen in real life Japan to real people. Last year sometime, the UN also took a bite at the anime and manga community and tried to ban all games and doujins that depicted sexual violence against women, saying that these depictions of sexual violence against women in these different eroges and doujins and even just regular anime and manga goes against the human rights and protection of women in the world. I did a whole rant about it in a video a while ago, links in the description. Luckily, the ban didn't go through on that part because a representative of Japan stated a few points which I could only just fucking applaud her with. But in this particular BBC documentary, the journalist goes and interviews a translator of these kinds of doujins, manga, anime, etc., and discusses whether these depictions of child pornography in these doujins is directly correlated or is linked to real-life pedophilic acts in Japan. And unlike the journalist who says that yes, people who do purchase and read these kinds of child sexual pornography, supposedly, is going to potentially be a culprit to real-life child acts. However, the translator thought completely different. And because he understands that side of the community a lot more than the journalist does, shockingly, his points make a lot more sense. He states in the documentary that there is a huge difference between the depiction of child sex and actual child sex, saying that yes, it's okay to criticize these drawings of supposedly underage girls committing these sexual activities, but it's not right to outright ban it. Because, and this might blow some people's minds here, they're not fucking real. The translator claims that these are nothing more than lines of ink on a piece of paper, and no real child was harmed when they made this doujin. Again, the translator agrees in saying that yes, I think it is completely wrong that real Japanese children, real underage girls are involved in these sexual acts, and those kinds of children need to be protected. But these drawings? No one's getting fucking harmed. The translator also makes a great point in the documentary in saying that the types of people who buy these kinds of doujins and manga are usually doing so to suppress their imaginations of those kinds of situations. Yes, I won't deny that people who are into child pornography do have mental problems and should be locked up. But a lot of people who do buy these kinds of doujins are buying them to fulfill their imaginations and repress it within the pages of these fictional, non-real characters who cannot be harmed, so that they don't go out and do the same thing to real Japanese girls. If you think about it, they're kind of doing the world a favor by just keeping all of their fucked up imaginations in their head and in the pages of the...
So I don't know what's more ridiculous, the fact that United Nations still exists, or the fact that the United Nations is talking about something that has literally no effect on the current climate of human problems in the world today. Absolutely none whatsoever. This is not surprising. I mean, this is the fucking United Nations we're talking about. This is the same United Nations that was originally the League of Nations, which was created after World War I to bring about peace in the world, and then that shit led to World War II. So in the grand scheme of things, the League of Nations failed to begin with. But anyways, that's besides the point. We're talking about the updated United Nations. This is a very important asset to humanity right now, and we need to talk about what is on their mind. What is affecting people on a day-to-day basis? How can we get rid of the poverty, high mortality rates, diseases across the world? Well, we can target anime and manga. What an awesome idea, guys! For those who are like, Double 4 Anime, what are you fucking talking about? Let me read this article for you guys. The United Nations has rekindled the debate about sexualized images of children in Japanese manga art after its special envoy on child protection, Deboa Bukicho, called for the East Asian country to ban certain graphic content in anime. I always notice it's like old people from the West complaining about things in Eastern culture. And that's not a problem, right? Everybody in the West should complain about things that are wrong with the world, because the West is clearly ahead in human development and understanding the human condition versus the Eastern world. This is very true. The whole world knows it. There's no hiding that shit. But when we talk about the Western world, complaining about things in the Eastern world that have zero relevance to the global problem and the issues around the world, to where there are more significant problems in the more developed Western world, then we have a fucking problem. Like, what are you doing? What are you smoking, United Nations? Y'all are on some bullshit. Fuck ISIS killing innocent people in the Middle East, or African kids eating each other at a young age because they got no fucking food. Or how about let's add Saudi Arabia to the Council of the United Nations, even though they fucking treat their people like fucking garbage. They treat women like second-class citizens with no rights. They execute gay people. They have Sharia law in their system, which is against every single modern ideology in place today in Western society. And y'all dumbasses are gonna add this underdeveloped garbage-ass country in the council, but then you're gonna complain about Japan's fucking culture where they don't display child pornography. It's just that it happens to be that their artwork looks youthful. But we don't have any problems in America or in Europe, right? No, fuck the immigration problem in Europe where Europeans don't have housing and jobs and shit, and you're gonna bring in this mass influx of refugees who we don't even check. Like, why do you think incidents like Charlie Hebdo happen? Because we don't check this shit correctly. Like, my personal opinion is that every refugee coming from the Middle East should sign a survey or like go through a bunch of questions regarding what their views are on modern Western civilization, and if that shit don't match, leave them there. But we're not focusing on real issues like that, or the gun problems in the United States where we have so many hundreds of thousands of people have died from guns in like the last decade or so, and we're complaining about child depictions versus actual human life. United Nations is a failure just because they're supposed to keep peace and stability in the world, and yet they're complaining about the most fucking irrelevant bullshit. Do you want to know something about our gun laws in America? We have more deaths in this country than almost every single Eastern Asian country put together in terms of guns, and we're supposed to be more civilized. We're supposed to be a better, fucking more caring country, but we have more gun deaths than Japan, who has some of the lowest mortality rate in the world. And why? Because they have some of the most draconian gun laws in the world. They have some of the highest life expectancy in the world. They have some of the lesser child abuse and pedophilia scandals in the entire world. And we're complaining about depictions, about artwork, about a culture that y'all don't understand. I am not here advocating for people drawing children in sexual positions or some shit like that. That's not what I'm fucking talking about. But this is not where these people are going when they complain about this shit, because the Japanese government has already made a statement that they are doing their best to counter and fight child pornography. But y'all want to take it a step further. Y'all want to actually infringe on freedom of speech. Then this old 70-year-old lady from the Netherlands tries to cop herself out at the end like, oh, well, I'm a protector of freedom of speech when it comes to adult pornography, but when it comes to child, bitch, it's not child pornography, it's drawings. What don't you understand about that? It does no harm to anybody. They say that this leads to more child abuse, but if that was the fucking case, if this led to more pedophilia, there would be higher pedophilia rates in fucking Japan than in the rest of the world. But guess what? That shit's not happening, and there's over 100 million people on this small island. It's all condensed up, and they have the less crime in the world. Y'all want to find one detail to complain about something and potentially fuck over a large group of people who love and enjoy anime and manga and who live off of this medium. Like, you don't understand how much this helps people on a day-to-day basis. When it comes to particular extreme child pornographic content, manga should be banned, adding it was important to find the right balance. You see, I agree with that. When it comes to extreme child pornographic content that actually shows minors in a light that they could be harmed, I 100% agree with you. But guess what? That is not your agenda here. That is not your goal here. Y'all want to use this as a fighting tool to attack other things. Because why? Because the Japanese government has already fucking made it clear that they're doing their best to counter this shit, and y'all keep on bringing this up years later. There's no reason for you to do that. There is way more important issues at hand, like Syrians trying to get out of their country because they're being bombed from fucking Russia. There's ISIS there. There's fucking troops there. Nobody has their backs, and y'all are complaining about drawings. There's actually been quite a few articles of raids on people's houses. They find child pornography, including manga depictions of children in a bad light, and they confiscate that shit. Not only do they do that, but they find the people. So if you're talking about the internet, the thing that you can't actually monitor, people are going to do whatever they want. And drawing shit, while I don't agree with it, like, I don't fucking like people who draw child pornography. Like, it's not something that I'm really for. To give you guys another point of view, a manga translator said there is no such thing as manga and anime child pornography. Child pornography entails the involvement of children, and we must confront it for that reason. Blah 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 meant sexualized depictions of childish-looking characters in manga and anime. Many male and female artists in Japan draw characters in an art style that looks childish in Western eyes. Therefore, it is a rejection of an art style popular in Japan. So there we go. Their agenda is something completely fucking different. Honestly, like, I never told people this, but I'm really good friends with Hiro Mashima. I actually talked to the guy on Skype quite a few times, and he told me straight up, like, he's tired of the Japanese government raiding his place. He's tired of them going into his bathroom when he's busting a nut to his own drawings. Leave the man alone. He don't want nothing to do with you guys. If I draw some shit like this, I should be able to fap to it.
10 Super Lovers.
ごめん、レン。ごめんな。もう二度とあんなとこに一人で閉じ込めない。
Japan, I think we need to talk about your interpretation of brotherly love. With the title like Super Lovers, one would assume that it would be about two passionate, consenting adults, or maybe teenagers, who go on a wild adventure in the pursuit of love. And to be fair, it really kinda is, except the lovers are Ren, an underage boy, and Haru, a grown-ass man, who also happen to be stepbrothers.
なんだね、起きたか。
What makes it worse is that Studio Dean's anime actually works as a coming-of-age story, no pun intended, about two individuals struggling with their identity, but it changes tones when Haru decides to get his freak on. Ugh.
心のどこかで願ってる。ほら、言ってみ。
Number 8. I don't like you at all, big brother. A tsundere title about incest? Great. Splendid. Good stuff. Awesome. Everything about I Don't Like You at All, Big Brother is kinda disgusting, from the unnerving character design to the repugnant story and insulting excuse for humor. Now is desperate to get it on with Shusuke, who is her perverted big brother, who also refuses to go down that route. As a real trooper, though, Nao breaks into his room to get rid of his non-incest porn, but stumbles upon Shusuke's old picture book. To her surprise, she is completely absent and ends up discovering that they're not related by blood. Finally, there's nothing stopping these crazy kids from going the distance. Is this a fulfillment of somebody's fantasy? Because oh boy. Number 6, Aki Sora.
僕とアキネには秘密がある。ナミにもお母さんにも秘密の二人の関係。
If there's one positive thing you can say about this anime, it's that they're really fully committed. Aki and Sora are full-blooded siblings. No half-brother bullshit here. This one's full-on incest with a capital I. What more is there to say, really? Spread over 3 episodes, Aki Sora's story, if you can call it that, centers on high school student Sora, who fantasizes about getting it on with his busty older sister.
口でチューしてなかった？まったくアキネもアキネだけど。
Spoiler warning, he gets it on with his busty older sister. Pushes it way over the line is Sora's character design, as he resembles something more akin to an 11-year-old kid than someone in high school. Number 5, Kiss X Sis.
見て。
Number 4, Papa to Kiss in the Dark.
京介。
お前もここにおいで。
Finally, an entry that's not about a brother and a sister getting it on. No. This time it's a father and son. Yay! Munakata Kyosuke is a famous actor who has every woman in Japan lusting after him. Unknown to the public, Kyosuke's sexual needs are already satisfied by his 15-year-old son, Gross. Number 2, Yosuga no Sora.
あなたのそばにいると私
Haruka and Sora decide to return to their hometown to start fresh. Once there, they run into a few old friends, and a harem begins with Haruka smack in the middle. As the siblings try returning to some degree of normality, they also struggle to hide a secret known only to them. Can you guess what it is? Yeah, it's incest. Of course it is. Number 1, Kodomo no Jikan.
じゃあ今日からリンが先生の彼女ね。
は？
だって先生に裸見られちゃったの。
Okay, good news is, this has nothing to do with incest. The bad news is that it's about a 7-year-old girl blackmailing her teacher because she wants to have sex with him. Hey, we said no incest, not pedophilia.